Today we're here with Michael Mercer, owner of Canton Barbell, and he is going to help us demonstrate the phase 2 exercises for WarriorFit. We're starting with day 1, and first he's going to do the deadlift. So Michael is aligning himself with a dumbbell between his feet. He's going to go down, bending in his hips, using his abdominals to keep his back in a neutral position. And he's going to power through his hips, bringing his hips to his hands rather than pulling the weight back to his hips. So he should feel this on the back side of his thighs and in his butt. And he should work to keep his knees in a neutral alignment. Watch how they don't collapse inward. Notice how his kneecaps remain pointed the same direction as his feet. Notice how the weight comes all the way up and he pauses at the top before coming back down. To make this easier, Michael is just going to do the hinge portion of this exercise. So watch how he initiates that motion, his butt sits back, but his knees don't bend. Then he comes back up to that same starting position. So he should still feel this in his glutes and in his abdominals, but not in his back. Of course, to make this even more easy, you could drop the weight and replicate this same motion, but without any weight in your hands. Look how he's using his hands on his hips to guide the motion as he goes up and down. The way to make this harder, of course, is either ramp yourself back up to any of the previous levels and or increase the weight if you're ready for it. For the second exercise in set 1, Michael's going to demonstrate a curl up with arms overhead, reaching to the ceiling. This exercise will be the same whether you're doing the weighted or unweighted versions. Notice how Michael rolls himself up so far that his shoulder blades and just the beginning of his mid-back comes off the ground. In order to make it easier, he's going to cross his arms rather than reaching up towards the ceiling. Notice that how he unravels on the way back down, similar to how he goes up. And finally, to make it more challenging, what he's going to do is first, he's going to make it slower on the descent compared to the ascent. Of course, you could also hold an object in your hands, which then would make you heavier and then make it more challenging. For set 2, day 1, Michael is going to first demonstrate a horizontal chop. Here, he's got the cable set up so that his arms are about parallel to the ground as he pulls. Notice how he's keeping his weight even between both legs. Notice how he's not allowing his torso or lower body to rotate separate from the other half of his body as he pulls or returns. If this is too difficult, what he's going to do is he's just going to hold it in front of him and then just hold that position, breathing, holding, bracing, and then relaxing. And then he's going to do the same thing again. Now he's going to hold his arms away from himself, holding, bracing, and then relaxing. Repeating this until he's got fatigue, then of course switching to the other side. To make it more challenging, of course, what we would do is either increase the weight or we would do this pull, but now with straight arms. So because now he's making a circular motion with his arms around his body, it's more challenging for both his abdominals and his shoulders. He's going to continue this before flipping over to the other side. Next, Michael is going to perform a lateral lunge. Watch as he reaches his foot out, keeping his knee aligned with his foot, and then essentially does a full squat just on his right leg. Notice that the depth and tempo remains the same as it would if his feet were even. Notice how he steps in a straight line, keeping himself symmetrical to where he started. Notice how his back stayed in a neutral position. If that's too challenging, he's just going to widen his feet and now rather than step, shift his weight onto that one side, driving back up. Again, going into that full squat variation. Obviously, you could remove the weight if this was still too challenging. Again, look how he sits back, keeps his lower back straight using abdominals, and then keeping himself in a neutral alignment otherwise. To make it harder, of course, you can increase the weight or go back to stepping if you were doing
the static version. Of course, for the home variation, he simply could take his handy-dandy grocery bag, fill it with some objects, and now he's going to repeat that same motion that he had been doing, but now using the grocery bag as his weight.
So here, Michael's patterning has changed a little bit in that now he goes left hand, left foot, right hand, right foot, rather than you would alternate arms and legs if you did this going forwards. So notice how his back is staying level. We could put a book on his low back and it wouldn't fall off. Notice how his knees stay at the same height the entire time. If this is too challenging for you, you're going to stay in the same place, come up into a bear crawl, stay in position. Now you're just going to lift one hand and then you're going to lift the other hand, alternating back and forth. A little more challenging would be lifting a leg rather than an arm. And then of course, you could alternate arm and legs, working the two together in order to prepare yourself back for that more challenging motion. If this is too easy, or you can resume actual motion, or if the motion itself was too easy, of course you could then just go a greater distance or put something on your back. The last exercise in set 2, day 1, phase 2, is the sit-up. So here Michael has his arms crossed and his feet anchored. What he's going to do is he's going to curl all the way up. Notice how every inch of his back touches the ground, both on the way back down and then also on the way up. He's not hinging off of his mid-back. He's also not pulling up just from his shoulders. He's really pulling his rib cage down towards his groin and then rolling himself the rest of the way up. If this is too challenging, you're going to walk yourself up using your hands. And then you're going to cross, and then now just slow, 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 control the descent. If this is too easy, you're going to come up normal, and then to make it more challenging, you're going to make the descent much slower, just like Michael's doing. Of course, you could always hold a weight across your chest. For set 3 of day 1, what we call the finisher, Michael's going to first do the burpee. So here he goes to a plank, a push-up, a squat, and a jump. Plank, push-up, squat, jump. He's going to repeat that, incorporating sound movement mechanics and principles through each movement. Really the key to the burpee is to get your feet up underneath you whenever you get ready to come up. Of course, to make this easier, just slow down and then start separating out the components there. Then get your feet underneath you, then come up. Or eliminate the jump portion. Or technically, you could turn this into what we would call a squat thruster by not actually doing the push-up, just going down into the plank. To make this harder, of course, you could increase the tempo, or you can have a weight vest on or some kind of implement like that.
For the second exercise in set 3, day 1, Michael is going to hold a plank. Here you see him starting in the push-up plank position with his arms straight. The important components are how he's keeping his back straight and he's actively pushing his glutes down towards the ground to hold himself in this even position. If that is not your preferred position, of course you could do what is more typically thought of as a plank, being down on your forearms. Here, Michael is once again trying to maintain that same position. If this is too challenging, either of these variations, you can go to an elevated surface. Now that your hands are higher than your feet, it more distributes the pressure towards your feet and allows you to stay more even and keep this position longer. If it's too easy, you could then go down to the floor and or change the variation as we've done in other videos and as Michael is showing here. For the last exercise in set 3, Michael is going to do a speed squat. Here he's simply repeating the squat motion at an increased tempo. Here it's approximately 1 second per each squat, and notice how he's using sound squat mechanics throughout the motion despite the increased speed. Of course, if this is too challenging, you can change it by making the pace slower. So now look how Michael is taking 2 seconds approximately to complete each repetition. Again, he's using sound squat mechanics. Also, if this is too easy, you can then just increase the speed. Now he's trying to complete 1 repetition in less than 1 second.